agendized items. The public has an opportunity to comment on those items. We ask for everybody to be respectful, civil to one another. If they're not, we can drop them, or they may be subject to being dropped. And I think we're good to go, unless Bay has something else that we left.
I like your version. That was good.
Sounds good.
The phone number's on the agenda to call in.
That's right.
All right. Well, with that, let's take a look at start off with agenda item number 1, which is review of our board meeting. So as always, we start off with the public hearings. So if we turn to, I think it's page 8, start off with the first item for that, which is our public hearing for proposed amended rule 219 and 222. Michael Kraus, will you give us summary there? I don't see, is he here?
Thought he was.
His hand is raised. He's in the.
Oh, does he need to be brought over?
I'll leave him over there.
Over now.
He's in. He's right there.
There he is.
Thank
You're
you,
on
Mark.
mute.
Advocate there. Okay. I'm like, hello in the background. Yes, we are. This is a continuation. This is a continuation from last month, the 219, 222. Again, we're making changes to those rules to shore up issues that EPA had. 219, as you recall, is our rule that allows certain types of equipment to be exempt from permitting. And basically, the big issue that EPA was having was making sure that folks have appropriate record keeping to ensure that they're showing that they are eligible for those exemptions. In addition, we are adding an additional relief for those facilities that are putting in a UV EV curing system into an existing permitted process, and there are some guardrails and conditions on that, and that was the issue of was up for discussion that we've had. We did take that to our stationary source for further discussion on that, and with a recommendation for the board to consider now for board approval this upcoming board meeting.
Michael, quick question there. So after the stationary source, there's been no, I mean,
There's no change.
Nothing's changed. Everything's the same as when it was. Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Other questions for Mike on that? Okay. I'm going to move on to the next item. We have our receive and file for our annual report on 88.
Sorry, right now, but yeah.
What was that?
I'm sorry, Sarah, could you repeat? What's your next item?
Next item I have is on our receive and file on 2588.
What about item 27?
So item 27 has been pulled from the agenda.
Okay.
And that was
No new date.
1110.3.
1110.3, that's correct.
And no new date at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, with that, we'll our report on AB 2588. Ian, perhaps you can give an overview of that.
Sure. So good morning, everybody. The AB 2588 report, this is a standard report we bring every year that just reports on what happened in the previous year in our air toxic hotspots program. Just a quick reminder, this is the program that looks at the potential toxic risks from existing facilities. So we'll just be doing a standard report out. We will have a little touch on ethylene oxide because that's been a big focus of what we've been working on as part of this program and all across the district. But overall, this is a relatively standard report. Available for any questions.
Ian, a quick question. How's this jive with the MATES studies that we do every so many years?
Yeah, good question. So the MATE study is a separate standalone effort that we look at both a really comprehensive look at monitoring, a special, year or even more sometimes monitoring campaign throughout the district to look at toxics, as well as really detailed emissions inventory, as well as modeling exercise, and compile all of that together in this really comprehensive report, which I think most folks here are familiar with. That program looks at, what is the existing risk from all sources, mobile sources, stationary sources, everything. A lot of the same emissions inventory data for some of our largest stationary sources that is used to feed into the MATE study. But in addition, MATES goes way beyond that. So the AB 2588 program is just sort of one piece of what goes into MATES, and AB 2588 is its own story. So it's one component that will fold in. But really, the 2588 program looks at it facility by facility look, very specific on each individual facility. MATES is more of a community focus. What does everything look like?
Are they the same toxics?
Yes. I would say that AB 2588 is more comprehensive, and that it has to look at all of some of the probably safe to say the more exotic toxics that are kind of rare and fewer and far between. MATES really looks at the most common and sort of the most the toxics of greatest concern that affect most people.
Ian, was there any, as a question, was there any new additions, like any new hotspots that were discovered, and then any hotspots that fell off?
So the hotspots really, maybe it's a little bit of a misnomer, only in that it can maybe apply to a community that's a hotspot, right, a specific geographic area. And really this program focuses on individual facilities, right? And so the way the program works, it's cyclical. So facilities continually go through this program on a 4-year cycle, for a really detailed inventory. And then if they hit certain triggers within the statute and within our rules, then they go on to kind of a more continuous screening development to see, is the risk increasing? Do they need to take additional actions? And so every year, facilities come in and they come out of the program, and they sort of go in and out depending on where they are in this cyclical process. So yes, we did have some facilities come in. I think the ones that are probably the biggest note this year, this past year, really were these ethylene oxide facilities. Those are the ones that, we've dedicating a lot of resources to here at the district to take a look at. There's some others too, but those are probably the highest profile. And there's some facilities in Vernon, one facility in Carson, and another facility in Ontario that have really taken kind of the most of our attention.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining the process.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Ian on that? Okay, let's move to the front of the board meeting agenda, page 3. So let's look at the set hearings, and first item, we're setting hearing on Reg 3. Sujata, do you want to give an overview of that?
Sure, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. So this item is set hearing for the amendments to Reg 3. The proposed to adopt executive officers' goals and priority objectives and the proposed budget for fiscal year 23-24. Once again, we will be bringing a balanced budget to the board. It's a $196.3 million budget. And there are some changes to the budget compared to prior year, almost $8 million. But most of those changes are due to some positions that were added in this year and some more positions that we are adding now. The CPI came in at 5.6%, so the fees are being adjusted for that. And there's also a 4% increase with a phase-in of 2% and 2% increase in fees for bringing in efficiency where needed for permit streamlining, etc. Other than that, I think our vacancy rate is still going to be at 11%. We're balancing the budget at that. And I'm just trying to see in the 5 years projection. Our 5-year projection still shows our fund balance is going to be above the 20% mark that the board's policy requires us to be. And that's pretty much it. Just a very brief overview.
Sujata, can I just add for everybody's reinforcement? So the budget is set at 11%, but you all know that we have nearly a 20% vacancy rate. So that's what we're shooting at within the budget, just to give you a better sense of how big of a gap we have and what we're trying to get to.
Right, I think your last report was 19%, something like that.
Yeah,
I
there's a lot
thought
of,
it was up back up on the last one that I saw to 20.
Yeah, I know it hovers in that area.
It hovers there. You're right, Mark.
yeah. And March is, you know, a month where a lot of retirees are leaving the district. So even though we tried to bring it down, it jumped up in March.
March is a good month to go, but that's, you know.
Yeah, you would know that, Mark.
Because there's something that happens April 1st, but I don't, you know. Okay, I have a couple quick questions. If Sujata, you said that's a 5.6 increase.
Yeah.
Is that including then the 2? And you said then a 2% and a 2%. So does that mean it's a 7.6, or how does that 2% fit in there?
Correct. The 5.6 is what the CPI came in at, and the 2% is above that.
Okay, and then you do the additional 2. It's scheduled for next year or mid-year?
Next year, next fiscal year.
Were there a lot of new fees that were added? I know we'll hear all this in a week when we have the workshop, but has there been like new things that have been added, or anything that's been dropped, or anything significant that will jump out that we should maybe keep an eye out for?
I can let Mike or Sarah answer that, but I don't believe there were any significant ones other than these two.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct, Sujata. Yeah, Mark, there isn't any new additional fees imposed at this time. You know, I just want to emphasize too, by the way, the 2% is always, it's only applied in certain rules and certain circumstances dealing with permitting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And one other last quick question. So that's 196 million budget. And I know we'll probably hear shortly about the TAO's office, but so we got a $92 million cap fund from CARB this year. Is that, so that, try to do the math in my head, that makes up about 40% of our budget, 40%. Is that correct?
No, Mark, that is a special, I mean, that's a state grant, so that goes into a special funds. What I'm talking about is the general fund budget.
Oh, okay.
So from that cap grant, we'll only get some administrative cost recovery, and that's
Okay.
pretty much
Yeah,
it.
like 6 million or something, I think. What is what?
6.5%, yeah.
okay.
So that's been incorporated in the budget.
I wondered how that interacted, because I know that if that made a big percentage of the total budget, but it was a different fund. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Any other questions?
I had one question, and that's how the vacancy rate here compares with other public agencies in the region. Is anything known about that? And the other question I had is whether there are specific categories where it's hard to hire, and whether any changes in visa requirements are affecting the ability to hire in those categories, specifically with engineers, for instance.
Well, I'll go with the visa. I think you're referring to the H-1B.
Yeah.
So the policy is that it has to be an exceptional person for us to move forward on that kind of visa, just because we believe there's so many qualified candidates. So we don't have a large pool of applicants under the visa program.
Okay.
We do have some, but as I said, as a policy, we try to hire people here in the US.
Sure.
And then with regards to industry-wide, I would say, at least in discussions that I've had with other APCOs around the state, air pollution control officers, many of us are in the same position as far as high vacancy rates. The trouble that we see is that employees are tending to move around, and they're cherry picking where there's higher pay. Where the South Coast used to be pretty much at the top, we're no longer there. So there are other smaller air districts that are paying more than we are. And so that's a challenge. And then when we look around our own region, you know, we're losing engineers to, for instance, Hyperion, DWP, other county agencies where they can either get more immediately, or they have a bigger opportunity for more funds within a shorter time period. So we're looking around and we're doing other type of survey information. We utilize CAPCOA. I don't know, Susan, if you want to talk about the CAPCOA study.
Yeah, so CAPCOA had surveyed the other air pollution control districts and looked at, I don't know, probably 8 different categories and then compared the salary. So we've been looking at that to see, that's how Wayne can say it's like we're not as competitive as some of the other air pollution control districts. So we are looking at that. We are in the season of negotiations of the MOU. And so that is, something that will be very important to this agency. Yeah. He also asked in regards to certain categories that are difficult to hire. The answer is yes. I think the public health officers like that is our health effects officer is a very difficult position. And there are certain positions that are more challenging. It's like certain types of engineers, refinery engineers, it's, ones that will be competing in the private industry where we just can't compete on the same salary scale. So we try to sell the mission and what we do and the great things that we do. And so there's a lot of things that we're doing also on the retention side. So.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on Reg 3? All right, moving on to our next item that we're setting hearing on is a proposed amended Rule 463 and 1178. Mike Kraus, take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so this is just a reminder, this is a combined rule consideration for the board, basically to align the applicabilities of both of those rules with the EPA CTG. This has come up recently in this past year on a disapproval from EPA to actually on CARB's oil and gas methane rule, and that rule references our rules. So we all kind of folded into one big swooping disapproval. And so we wanted to get that action corrected. Right now we are under a sanction clock for that. So it's really critical that we kind of bring those to the board and align those applicabilities up. Just for your own edification, staff did look at what that change of applicability might mean for our existing sources. And while there might be a tank or two, all of the tanks are already in compliance with the Reasonable Available Control Technology, or RACT demonstration. And that's ultimately what EPA is seeking, that any of those tanks out there are in compliance, and ours are. So no affected facilities. That's to the board. In addition, just so you know, 1178, we have been working on it on our BART analysis. This is looking at large petroleum tanks at oil refinery facilities and basically looking at things like increased controls, monitoring and things like that, secondary seals, et cetera. We have been working with the stakeholders on that, and that's still ongoing, and we do plan to bring that to the board in August. And that's it.
Okay, not seeing any questions there. All right, moving on to the next items are budget fiscal impact items. The next one's items 3, 4, and 5. They're all Aaron's. So Aaron, maybe you can take that away.
Yeah, just real brief on item 3. This is to recognize revenue for the farmer program, which is what we use to incentivize the replacement of agricultural equipment. The second part of that is recognizing the just above $90 million for the community air protection funds. We use these funds to help implement the AB 617 program, the CERTs. Historically, in the past, also, they've helped with fund projects with the Moyer incentive programs. So we're going through a community process on how those funds will be spent here in the next year or so. And I'll pause there on 3 if there's any questions.
Aaron, just one quick question. Does that 92 million, is that higher, lower, or about the same from last year's allocation?
Yeah, so this year, this 92 million and also last year, they're about the same, but that is relatively high. We don't expect that to continue in the next couple of years. So we're very appreciative at these levels right now.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move on to item number 4. So that is regarding our Replace Your Ride program. So one, we're going to be recognizing $3 million in new revenue for implementation of that program. We also will be taking $2 million out of the BP ARCO settlement funds to basically help pay for the cost of this program over the past couple of years. It's a very very intensive program, resource intensive program to operate. There was 1 year that we had a funding moratorium, but we continued to operate the program, and there's a lot of increase. So we need this to help pay for the contractor costs and staff costs. This also will be to execute contracts for paying these contractors. But moving forward for this next year, as we implement the program, we're going to be trying a new way of payment with the contractors, more on a voucher base, and we'll see if this is a little bit more sustainable way to operate this program. So I'll pause there if there's any questions on that item. And then I'll move on to item 5 then. This is a project that we're funding with a company called Rocket Truck. They are developing a mobile platform fuel cell generator. So this generator has a bunch of hydrogen tanks on it, some battery banks, and can be towed into place and then provide power, zero emission, essentially, to a site. So this project that we're working on is the second generation of this mobile generator. It's going to provide higher power, higher voltage. It's going to be basically go through testing with SoCal Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric for certification standards, and then will be demonstrated at Cal State LA at their hydrogen research and fueling facility, where it's going to provide some sort of resiliency for the fueling infrastructure there. And I'll pause there if there's any questions on that item. And with that, I think those are all my items in this section.
Great. Thank you, Aaron.
Aaron, I'm sorry. What's the electric capacity of these little portable hydrogen fuel cell generators?
Yeah, so this second generation one we're developing with Rocket Truck, it's going to have 120 kilowatt peak output that can operate at 480 volts. So theoretically, this should be able to charge a couple of electric cars. And on these types of systems, we're starting small because this really hasn't been done before, and then hopefully scale these up to bigger units in the future.
Aaron, and when you said that once it's tested by SoCal Edison, and then I thought it was San Diego Gas, then it's going to Cal State LA to stay there permanently, or is it going to be used to demonstrate to other individuals?
So I think the plan right now with Cal State LA is 1 year demonstration there. The hope after this is that Rocket Truck plans to commercialize these units.
Gotcha.
We're bring these in the commercial market here in the next couple of years.
I had a question. How big is the unit? Can it be scaled to different sizes?
Yeah, well, right now we have a concept phase of drawing, and I don't have the proportions in front of me, but the thought is, yes, it can be scaled. So we're hoping that these, on the different power needs on these, you're pretty much limited to the compressed hydrogen on board on how long they can operate and what the power output is. But, the thought is, well, maybe we go with a tractor trailer type unit, and that can be deployed for emergency situations or even help, power battery electric trucks when the grid cannot support all the needs there. It's just the problem is we got to make sure the hydrogen's available. So that's another step that needs to be solved here in this whole equation.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, great. Well, with that, let's move on to item number 6. Jason Lowe.
Morning, everyone. This item is for the Refinery Fence Line and Community Air Monitoring Program under Rule 1180. The action is to transfer and appropriate up to $100,000 from the Rule 1180 Special Revenue Funds and to appropriate about $230,000 from the General Fund to the Monitoring Analysis budget in order to purchase orders and contract conducting independent audit. So add and delete positions to meet operational needs of the program. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, not seeing any. Moving on to item number 7, Ron.
Good morning. This is a routine request to amend contracts and add funding for short and long-term systems development, maintenance, and support services. Funds are available in the information management's budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Seeing none, let's flip to page 6. The next 3 items, 8, 9, and 10, are Sujata's.
Good morning again. So item number 8 is an item which was, we had issued an RFP in November, and then the evaluations were done for executing a contract, a 3-year contract with the Poon Group. They're an audit firm, not to exceed 170,000. And this is for independent audit services for our financials. Happy to answer questions on that one. All right, number 9 is remove various fixed assets. So this is an item that we bring every year to the board, and this is requesting authority to dispose items that have become fixed assets that have become obsolete or inoperable, and in the amount of $2,867,434. That was the original cost. They're fully depreciated, and 2 of the items are being traded in. And then the vehicles, now that we have a program with Enterprise, they're going to be given to Enterprise, who will sell these for us. We used to send these to auction and not get too much. So hopefully we'll get a better return on that. So happy to answer questions on that also. And the last item that's mine is item 10, and that's the annual investment delegation of authority as treasurer to LA County treasurer for our funds that reside with them. Happy to answer questions on that also.
Okay. Seeing none, let's move on to item number 11, and that is errands.
Yeah, so this one did not go through committee. This is kind of a rush board letter. We were notified a little bit late. We have a request from Long Beach Container Terminal to work with them to be the prime applicant for the Port Infrastructure Development Program grant opportunity. So this grant is due on April 28th. Previously, Port of Long Beach worked with LBCT on the PIDP grants, but Port of Long Beach has another grant they're submitting. So under this application, the ask is going to be $50 to $80 million for Long Beach Container Terminal. And essentially, this is going to put in the electrical infrastructure to help them basically put the last 200 pieces of equipment they have at that terminal into zero emission operation. So I'd be happy. We have to enter an MOU with this with Long Beach Container Terminal before we submit the application on April 28th. So I'd be happy to answer your questions there.
Aaron, and PIDP?
Port Infrastructure Development Program grant.
Thank you.
And that's also, I failed to mention, that's under the Maritime Administration, which is part of the Department of Transportation.
Aaron, it says here to basically decide what the responsibilities are. Is AQMD going to have any responsibilities, or are we just a support letter?
Well, we're going to be the main overseer of the grant. So if the project were to encounter difficulties, we're the ones that are basically responsible for those problems. So we have to, in the contract, would pass a lot of this on to Long Beach Container Terminal, like if there's cost overruns, issues like that. So, you know, they have a pretty good reputation of projects like this on their terminal, but it does present some problems for us if the project does not go well.
Can I ask what kind of problems?
Well, it's, yeah, you never really know until you get into the projects. So, you know, things like perhaps when they're doing the infrastructure, you know, there's going to be load calculations that need to be done. Most of these calculations will be done ahead of time, but there's always, you know, a risk that perhaps the electrical infrastructure needs a new substation or something like that, you know, just hypothetically speaking.
But Aaron, this is Tom. That terminal they're probably the most advanced as far as adding in zero emission technology, aren't they?
I would say so, at least for our local ports, yes.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no more questions on that, let's flip the page. Page number 7, we have items 12 through 17. These are information only, receive and file. Any questions on these?
On which one there? Wait, how far till 17? Of course, I'm going to ask about the rule control measure. Is there anything that is being changed dramatically, moving around on 16?
Yeah,
Go
hi,
ahead,
Mark.
Mike.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we just highlighted again that 1178, the ongoing BART analysis is going to be considered in August, and that's what we highlighted in the rule forecast calendar. While still
Okay.
bringing 1178 just narrowly focused on the SIP fix in May.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to items 18 through 24. These are just our reports from committees and from CARB. Any questions there? All right, that concludes our review of the board agenda for our upcoming board meeting. Any last comments before I move to public comments? All right, at this time, we'll take public comments on agenda item number 1, the review of our board agenda. Seeing any hands raised? Okay.
No public comment.
Moving on to item 2 of our agenda, any other business that we need to discuss? Seeing none, moving on to our general public comment. Not seeing any hands raised there. All right, that concludes our meeting. Looking forward to our board meeting next week, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye, everybody.